Hello and welcome to a nice heart of the summer edition of Santos on Sports. The sun is shining, it's in the 80s, and everything's all right with the world right now. As we welcome you in to talk sports here on Santos on Sports, along with Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Welcome in. Shout out to our sponsors, John Seed, attorney at law, 156th 8th Street, New Bedford, Lakeville Athletic Club. 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, Citywide Glass with 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton, and Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. So, Chris, you're looking sharp. You got the white, you got the Adidas hat. You're really putting on a good, sharp outfit for Santos on Sports today.
I am 3 weeks deep into my my tennis summer right now, Paul. 2 weeks ago in Enfield, Connecticut, lost in the finals of my bracket in the 18 plus level of my tournament. And then last week went to Boston and actually with my team, the Lakeville Club, we won the 40 and over in my level. So
all right.
Once again, we'll be representing New England in November in the Nationals out in Surprise, Arizona. So I'll be heading out there in November to represent New England. So that 2 weeks there. And then today, I just came back from the Newport National Hall of Fame, where the Newport tournament is going on right now. I had a little lunch with Mr. John Isner. As I was ordering, he came in behind me, standing 6'10". So I turned around and said, "Oh boy, look at this." I realized it was him, and he sat right next to us. I had a little lunch with him, and we had a little conversation and chat about tennis.
Gee, that's fantastic. Well, good for you. Congratulations. I'm not surprised that you won. You know, you're a winner. You know what I mean? You're like the guy that comes through in the clutch, like some other guys. Unlike some of the players I'm criticizing all the time.
You're going to hold up the it factor?
Yeah. He's got. I think Chris has the it factor.
No, it just happened that it takes more than just me. It's a team, but I happen to be on one of the doubles teams, and out of the 3 spots, so we had a good showing, in the 18 plus, and we just had a better showing in the 40 plus. So real happy to represent Lakeville, real happy to represent New England. Go out there in November and see if we can put a little dent and a little scare in some of these other sections.
Okay, that's fantastic. Congratulations again. Keep up the good work. I know you enjoy it very much. You're a sports guy, and I think he does have the it factor, right? I think he has the it factor. But anyway, you see the number there, 774-762-6234. You can call up and congratulate Chris. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is jump on board with the subjects today. We're going to talk Patriots. We're going to talk Red Sox. I thought we'd start with the Patriots first, if that's all right. You know, I'm sitting on the sidelines here, and I know it's going to come across, Chris, like the old spoiled Patriots fan. He just, it's a Super Bowl or nothing, and we're just like, we won all these Super Bowls, and now, we're always complaining and stuff like that. But this whole thing in Bill we trust, right? What is he doing? What is Bill doing? He just kind of sits on the sidelines. He lets free agents go by. He lets other teams like Buffalo and Miami pick up these really good players. He likes to take like these like mediocre players and coach them up and all that. Well, that's all great. You can pound your chest and all that. But at this point in time, Tom Brady ain't walking through that door. Mm-hmm. So Tom Brady isn't going to take a guy that's mediocre and make him better, or make a guy that's good great. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen. Mac Jones still remains to be seen. But to me, it seems like, okay, you got some decent players there. Why not, get Mac Jones like 1 or 2 really like top level guys? Like Tyreek Hill went to, obviously somebody else in the division. Now you got, obviously Aaron Rodgers in the division. I know the Patriots weren't going to go there. I'm not saying they should, but you can't just sit by and watch all these teams like fatten up. And he's just sitting back like, oh, what is he going to do? He's going to take like, some mediocre player and all of a sudden he's Tyreek Hill. It's not going to happen. So I'm looking at this guy. I got to tell you, in Bill we trust, you can throw it out the window. If Bill Belichick was hired 5 years ago, the Cam Newton year, he'd be fired by now. He's only there because of his resume of winning all the Super Bowls. So what is he doing? Like, shouldn't he be spending some money? I mean, I have a headline there, the Patriots being cheap. Well, you can afford to be somewhat cheap when you had Tom Brady, but now that's gone now. So now you got to compete in the market, the way the market is. I mean, Kraft has a lot of money. They're 27th in the league in spending. So for God's sakes, reach in your pocket, grab a couple of, good free agents and help the kid out, because otherwise this team's going nowhere. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to agree on this with you, Paul, and here's why. You have 2 years under your belt with Mac Jones. This is your 3rd year with a new offensive coordinator. hey, let's get some weapons around this young man that he can show and throw the ball to. Because we've seen in the 2 years that he's played, it's been kind of suspect. So to come out and say, I'm just going to rely on Schuster, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, and say, hey, those are my big three right now. And if the other guy, Taekwon, comes in and does his thing and go with those four, if there's a guy out there and you got a veteran, and this is the Andre Hopkins, this is not a slouch. Yeah, I know age is up there in fact, but it's veteran leadership inside, the locker room, and a guy that's, a proven commodity in the NFL. And I think that would really help and boost up the confidence in somebody to throw to in Mac Jones. And let's not forget, Paul, this is now, in my opinion, a throwing league. The NFL, you're watching what's going on with these running backs, not signing Saquon Barkley and the play Eckler and Pollard was having issues. Guys are having problems signing right now because they don't put faith in the running back position. Well, they're putting faith in it's a throw league first. Okay, well, if that's true, then let's go out and get some weapons for Mac Jones. I don't understand why they're not doing it.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I you remember last year I was a Zappy guy, so put that aside for a second. In all fairness to Mac Jones, right? Pretty good year that first year, got into the playoffs, right? The second year, obviously, Bill screwed up with, the offensive coordinators. That was a big disaster. Now you got Bill O'Brien this year, but, he likes to spend money on defense, and he likes to, like I said, take like a mediocre player, turn him into something. He also likes to focus on special teams, because he loves that three phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. But yeah, you're right. They've made the rules much more better for the offense because that's what the fans want. The fans like to see offense and stuff like that. The rules are much tougher on the defense. You can't do this. You can't do that. Everything's holding. Everything's pass interference. So really, you got to win the game with some great quarterback play and some great wide receiver play. And unless you have the weapons, I don't care who the coach is, you're not going to win.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. And if you're going to be, and we've seen it over the last few years, a NFL league that is pass happy, and you're going to keep throwing the ball all around, well, hey, now I got to have people to throw the ball to. So I'm not knocking Schuster, and I'm not knocking Parker. And I think they're okay wide receivers, don't get me wrong. But if I have an opportunity to get a good talent, as Hopkins has been when he was with the Texans, as he was with the Cardinals, and have an opportunity here, and he comes for a workout, leaves, go to Tennessee, gets a workout, got an offer, I hear, from the Patriots, but not the offer that he wanted, and Tennessee offered more. So he went where the money went, and he's now a Titan.
You see the number there, 774-762-6234. Let's go to the phones. This is Barry from Fall River. You're on Santos on Sports.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah, good. How are you today?
I'm good. Listen, this Hopkins thing's hilarious. The Patriots have been down this road before when it's and Joey Galloway, and then they traded for Sanu. These are guys that basically are going into their 10th, 11th season and have over 750 catches and a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. Okay, Hopkins is 31. He was caught using PEDs, and he hasn't been the same guy in 3 years. Okay, let's put that aside. The Pats want a receiver, you have to draft those guys. You have to draft those guys high. Okay, they've never done that since probably Terry Glenn. Okay, and to some extent, Terry Glenn worked out for them. All point aside, he had a great rookie year. So you have to draft those guys. As far as Mac Jones is concerned, we have to get him weapons. First off, guys, he is what he is. He's not He's not Josh Allen. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Pat Mahomes. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Justin Herbert. He's not one of those guys. What he is he's Chad Pennington or Kyle Lawton. He's a game manager with a decent arm. And these people need to stop putting this guy at the level of those players. He had a very good rookie year, but he also struggled in a rookie year. And some of the flaws were covered up by Josh McDaniels. Unfortunately, because they hired the bad coaches last year, those flaws got exposed. So in comes Bill O'Brien. So what you're going to see the last 2 years is what you're going to see this year, regardless of who's playing receiver.
All right. Let's see what Chris has to say.
Listen, I can agree with you, Barry, because here's why. You're talking about players, and I had said prior to you coming on, veteran leadership in that locker room that I think can help a team. I didn't say carry them and lead them, and as you say, wear and tear, he is worn down. Totally agree with you. But I still think when you have somebody who's a game manager, you need somebody that you can count on. Can he count on Schuster? Can he count on Parker to be those third down, wide receivers that can get me the first down compared to maybe having a Hopkins who might be able to show a little bit of that? Put all that other stuff aside, as you said, the PEDs and all the other stuff that he's been through. But I think it's a guy that can help the team, try to balance this offense to help Mac Jones. And that's what I'm looking for. Someone that can help and lead Mac Jones, not take them to the promised land, because I don't think DeAndre really may have that anymore with the age factor, putting in and what he's been going through with the wear and tear. But I just think it's something that shows Mac and the team and the confidence in their offense to say, hey, give us somebody that can help us out.
And Barry, you mentioned about how, you have to draft the wide receivers, but Bill hasn't been very good at that. He's blown that a number of times. So what's wrong with complementing what they have drafted with a good top-notch free agent?
I never viewed Hopkins as a top-notch free agent.
No, I don't think he is, but some of the other people that have gone by.
Bill's the mistake when it comes to receivers with Bill has been fascinating because they've gotten away from their philosophy. You remember early in Bill's tenure here, they drafted Deion Branch. They drafted guys like Julian Edelman, developed them. They stole Wes Welker from Miami, who was the second year out of Texas Tech, because those guys kind of fit that slot system. Because the offense, guys, is designed around the tight end and the slot receiver. It's not designed around the outside receiver. This is a between the hash number offense where you're throwing a lot of slants and whatnot. It's not a vertical offense. It's more of a horizontal offense. It's been that way for almost 23 years. With Brady when Brady was here.
All right, so let me ask you there. Hunter Henry has been in there. They haven't really been using him as much as they did. So can we get Hunter Henry more involved in the kind of game you're talking about?
What you're going to see this year is you're going to see the two tight end offense that Bill ran with Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski, and the slot receiver, it's probably going to be Kendrick Bourne. That's going to be they're going to go back to that type of offense.
Is that going to work?
The problem is, well, we'll see, because the issues they have right now are tackle. They have so many problems at tackle right now. They have a guy who should retire. They have a journeyman in Calvin Anderson. Who knows what Trent Brown is going to be? That's fine. But he talked about getting back, and I go back to the quarterback again. The way this league is now, you've got to have a quarterback in 1 or 2, 3 times a game, whether it's Burrow or Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, who can throw a guy open, who can make a big play on the move. Right now, they don't have that. And I don't see them being a playoff team right now. I think they're going to – where they are right now, they're stuck in NFL purgatory. They're not good enough to contend for a Super Bowl, and they're not bad enough where they end up in that top 3, and they get that Caleb Williams from USC, who some people consider a generational talent.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be like that for the Patriots for a little bit of time, because this AFC East has really shaped up, and Buffalo, Miami – and I'm not sure on the Jets yet, because I got to see what Rodgers, puts with this team with his age factor putting in. But definitely Buffalo and Miami have now really stepped over the line to face New England. So it will be interesting to see how New England faces those foes and how that offense, not maybe the defense, but how that offense can try to get and score to help them out. So they're going to need everybody involved. Starts with the offensive line, obviously Mac, and then what they can get from the receivers and Stevenson in the backfield. So it's going to take an awful lot for New England Patriots to make the playoffs this year, in my eyes.
All right, Barry. Well, thank you very much for calling. That was an excellent call, and call again.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Barry from Fall River on Santos on Sports. 774-762-6234. Yeah, that was an excellent call. He had his ducks lined up. He had his preparation. He knew his stuff, gave his opinion. And really hard to disagree with him, except that I do think, and I'm not talking about Hopkins in particular. Yeah. I'm just talking about, like, say, over the last year and a half, there's been some pretty good free agents that went by. And
and I like a guy, Paul, and Randy Moss, if you remember, I like guys that can stretch the field. I like guys that at least can take off vertical and it keeps people honest. So then you can have slot receivers underneath routes and getting their job done in there. And then when they had guys like Moss and a few more that could stretch the field, I always like that. And it just makes it a little bit more where I can maybe use him once in a while because they don't think I'm going to do it. And then if I do it, maybe I got an elite guy that can go up and get the ball in one-on-one coverage. So, they don't have the version of Hopkins of what he used to be. But if they did go get him in that time, at least it would have gave someone that could maybe stretch the field down just a little bit.
Well, I got a message trickling in here from the Windy City, all the way from Chicago, Illinois,
Yes.
from Mark Sylvia. He says the following: cheap sons of bitches, plain and simple. Bill Belichick needs to realize the team can't be run without Brady, the same as it was with Brady. I think it was the same thing I was saying before.
Right. No, it's a true story. And I'm sure Bill knows that. And, he knows what he has in Mac. And remember what they did that first year. And then the second year, it had the three-coach system. Plus, remember, Paul, he was hurt. He was banged up in and out with Zappy. They had a lot going on there. So now it's the third year, a new offensive coordinator, a new strength and conditioning, all the things that's supposed to make this guy better. To add somebody with him, like I said, just can only help, especially some veteran leadership, not that can take over the wide receiver crew, but just enough to kind of, give some positive confidence in Mac Jones when he's on that field.
All right, and a shout out to Philip McDonald, who was watching today, talking about the Patriots going after these kind of washed up running backs. So I think that's Stevenson. Stevenson might be one of the best running backs in the league. Mm-hmm. And there's been a whole discussion about how, the teams, or rather not the teams, but the league has gotten away from the running back. You know what I mean? It really is a passing league, like you said. Hey, you got to have a good running back too to keep everybody honest. But the running back free agents, right, as far as the market, it hasn't even gone up. Every year, like it costs more and more to get a good wide receiver or a good quarterback. Every single year, up goes the market. The running backs have stayed flat over the last few years, and that's because of the way the league has gone, I think.
Yeah, kind of funny, too, because you got guys who really did well in Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs, who led the NFL last year in rushing and touches and carries, and both guys are not signed yet. But you can get away with it, Paul, because you can throw bubble screens. You can throw wide receiver screens. You can throw tight end screens, and you can still throw out in the flat to some of them, scat backs, and still make it look like it was a run play, even though it's a little dump off. So it comes into that kind of atmosphere right now. So what are the Patriots looking for? Okay, 20-20, I got Stevenson. Well, wait a minute. I got Blount, who's in right now, taking a look. He got an invite. Maybe they're looking for that big type of back when they get down to the goal line. It's the only thing I can think of right now that they're looking for.
So do you agree with Barry from Fall River? Barry from Fall River says that the Patriots are going to be doing a lot of dump-offs, 2 tight ends set, that kind of thing, use Hunter Henry, maybe Kendrick Bourne. That's another thing, Chris. It was kind of frustrating that, I don't know, somehow Bourne got in the doghouse. I remember.
Now Barry talked about Bourne, and here's a guy who has not been really sitting and looking eye to eye with Bill Belichick. So to come up with that name was kind of interesting. Boy, hopefully he can turn that around and be the Kendrick Bourne that they want him to be. So big year, and I'm looking forward to that name right there when the Patriots open up their offense to see where he really is and what he's going to do.
774-762-6234. We're talking Patriots for the first half of the show here on Santos on Sports, and then we're going to get into the Red Sox in just a little bit. I think, Chris, again, we've talked about it before, with Patriots fans, we are, not you, you're a Cowboys fan, but us Patriot fans, we've had it pretty good over the past few years. But, I've talked about it before. We keep hearing about how Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time and all that. Okay, fine. You can say that, whatever you want to say. But is he adjusting? Was he never that good in the first place? Is it he's not adjusting with the league? He's still trying to win games the old-fashioned way. He still thinks this is the 1987 New York Giants. It just doesn't feel like he's going for the jugular. It feels like, and then that year that they went out and spent all that money, that year after, Brady winning the Super Bowl and all that, they went out and spent all this money and they didn't spend it in the right place. And then when there was a year where there were better free agents out there, they sat on the sidelines. So it was inconsistent. They blew money when they shouldn't have. And then when there were good free agents out there, they didn't do anything. So that just seemed to me, I think they were ineffective.
Well, Paul, you can't just throw players out there and just say, go play because you're that good and you're going to win. That's where coaching becomes, obviously very important. What to call, who to get, who's the backup. So when Bill was obviously doing well during those 20 years, I'm not just saying it was Bill Belichick. I'm not just saying it was Tom Brady. I'm not just saying, it was a linebacker that did outstanding. Ted Johnson, not a Randy Moss. This is a combination of 11 people on the field, and it's run and organized, and they make sure they start at the top and go all the way down to the bottom guy, which includes defense, obviously special teams, and everything else. So when they had it going, Bill was the leader, and you had those role players in certain positions, but you had your stars in those certain positions. And it worked out, and they gelled, and everything went the way it was supposed to. Now, obviously, the cycle has to turn. Those guys are going to get older. Those guys are going to retire. Others are going to come in. Now it's a matter of, can I get some of that same flow, that same combination? Can I coach these guys up? Can I make them better and do everything that needs to be done to obviously go back to the playoffs and win another bowl? It is not easy to do. And so when people ask me, oh, it was all because of Tom, I can't really say that. And then when they say, oh, no, it was all because of Bill, I can't really say that either. I just think it's a team effort. And me being a coach, I know it's just not me when we win things. Players have to go out and execute. Things have to work just right. You got to avoid penalties. You got to avoid turnovers. All the things that win ball games starts from general manager to coaching all the way down to the last guy in your team. So, it's just a little bit of everything. I still think Bill's a good coach. I always will say that, he knows what he's doing. It's just a matter of putting the pieces of the puzzle together in those phases of the game. And he's done it for all those years with some great players. And he's still trying to do it now with guys who are gone out to the pasture and new guys coming in. So it's very difficult to do.
The thing I think that's a little frustrating is that all those years when Brady was there, because it wasn't all Brady. You had Gronkowski. I mean, we could sit here and go through all the Hall of Famers that are on these teams, on defense, especially that
Teddy
first
Barnes,
cluster of Super Bowls. You had great field goal kickers like Vinatieri on the team making plays and all that. Okay, I'll check all those boxes. The AFC East was suspect. We've talked about that before. But the Patriot way was kind of like, hey, maybe you're not a great player, but you're a really good player and you buy in, that whole thing. And then it was like, we don't make dumb plays. We're not offsides. We don't, get all these dumb legal procedure penalties. We don't do this, we don't do that. But then in the last few years, that's all gone because they are the dumb team that has the dumb penalties. One of the games I was at, I'm sitting there and you can look and see the penalties. Sometimes when you're watching the game, you forget about it, but they have the penalties up on the screen. I'm like, Patriots are getting penalties like crazy here. Giving up, they hold the team to like a third down, and then they make a nice play. And it's like, oh, first down, they did a penalty. That whole effort was blown. Especially, and you do that against a team like Josh Allen. You can't give him an extra down. It's like giving a batter an extra, pitch. You can't do it. And so why are these Patriot teams recently under the same Bill Belichick, under the same greatest coach of all time? Why are they making all the dumb mistakes that we used to make fun of the other teams for making?
Well, it's not as bad as you're putting it out to be. Yeah, there's some games there that there was a hold that came back or an offsides or, something that the snap count was wrong or whatever it was. A little more uncommon than they normally did. And that, sometimes that comes with players you got in there and players who keep shifting in and out. And it's not that same kind of guy that's been on that offensive line through the 5-10 years, or someone who's been playing receiver. And now you're starting to take that out and put this in and this guy out and that guy in. And then you get into those things. Sometimes it's rookies. Sometimes, it could be a veteran who just made a dumb mistake. It's a little, it just happens a lot. And those years are going to happen, Paul. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. As much as you had that 20-year run where everything was hunky-dory and it works, now maybe the cycle turns and then you have it the opposite way. So, that's tough. That's tough to say because, you can look at situations during the game and obviously you're pressing more now because you're not that winning team where everything flowed great because you were always winning compared to, now I got to grind and now I got to find a way to win. So now you try to execute more and you put more pressure on yourself, and then you make those mistakes. So,
No, but I remember like announcers saying and pundits saying, well, you don't see a Bill Belichick team do that,
I used to say that all the time.
Yeah, but just because Tom Brady's not there, or Tom Brady left and then Gronkowski left, like the team should still not make those mistakes. It still should be the Bill Belichick team that doesn't do that. But yes, they do that. They're like everybody else now. They're not any different.
Yeah, and again, you're talking about Brady, a veteran that probably ain't going to make it. Gronk, same thing, not going to make those mistakes. And now with those guys gone, you put someone who takes their place. You're hoping that they're not going to make those mistakes. But they're not Gronk, and they're not Brady. And so right now, they are making those mistakes. It's not as easy as it looks, believe me.
All right.
As a former football coach, it is not easy.
All right, so 774-762-6234. Give us a call. A guy from Chicago, he's calling the Patriots cheap sons of bitches and everything else, Why don't you get on the phone and give us a call and back up those statements?
Well, listen.
He's working, I think.
Well, he is working today because I talked to him a little bit earlier. And, I thought maybe he would chime in when we get to the Red Sox because I think he'll chime in with the Red Sox as well. So once we turn the topic, I expect to hear from him too.
All right, we're going to turn over in just a moment, but I did want to ask you something, right? Okay, So I'm looking at this roster of players that are there for Mac Jones, right? You got Stevenson, one of the better running backs. He can go out on a short pass. You can hit him, on a slant and stuff like that. Parker has made some great plays. Bourne, if they use him right. Smith-Schuster's got a lot of experience. Hunter Henry. Thornton has shown flashes here and there. So it's not like he doesn't have anybody, but he did lose Jacoby Myers, and for whatever reason, him and Jacoby Myers were on the same page. They clicked. There was a guy that, why not just keep him? I mean, you could say, well, he was asking for too much money based on the kind of player he is, but he clicks with your quarterback. So why not keep the guy that clicks with your quarterback?
Well, maybe they'll think that Schuster can do the same thing,
right?
Maybe for lesser money, and he'll click with him. Or now Parker's healthier, he'll click with him. Or now we got Bourne out of the doghouse, and he'll click with him. And, they'll try to find something that say, hey, here's my reliable guy to go to. And so hopefully they have that in one of those four guys.
All right. Well, speaking of the Red Sox, I kind of got a little more interested in the Red Sox. I think it's just because, we were so focused on the Bruins and the Celtics, and there was a lot going on. I know that's a long time ago now that the Bruins and the Celtics have been done, but then, summer vacation, this and that, kind of looking at the Red Sox. They're not really that good, But then he's kind of picked up steam a little bit. So I started watching. I'm like, who's all these no names over here? Well, Chaim Bloom, right, is under a ton of criticism. Mm-hmm. And I criticized them too. But I'm thinking to myself, all right, he's talking about this next core. He got rid of the old core. The old core was like Bogarts and JD Martinez and all that. Mm-hmm. And now he's talking about this like new core. And I'm looking at some of these players, and some of them are pretty good, like a couple of guys got speed and some of these guys are developing. And I know Bayo got banged around the other night, but he's kind of emerging as one of their top guys. So I don't know. We have to see how the Red Sox do in the next 10 days, which is going to be important as long as they're only within a couple of games of the wild card right now. If they're within a couple of games of the wild card, let's see what he does. Maybe he'll go out there and try to get somebody. I know he's going to say Sale and Storia coming back. Yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. What's that really going to do? I think it'll help a little bit. But I don't want to give up on the season because if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. We've seen it with Philadelphia. We've seen it with Atlanta Braves. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen here with this new core. Do you think that there is kind of like a new core that we're just kind of like blowing them off? Like, this guy Bloom, he's cheap. They don't know what they're doing. But I'm looking at some of these players, and I think some of these players got potential.
Well, Duran, Verdugo, and Devers,
right,
top three right there. If that's like Ellsbury, you know what I mean, Pedroia, when they had those guys, and let's say Big Papi. So now you have Duran, who was like Ellsbury. You have Verdugo trying to be like Pedroia, and then you have obviously Devers as Big Papi. So you're trying to find that balance in the top three, with Story, if he comes back in August, to round that out in the top four, let's say. So is that the new regime? It seems to be. Is it working? It has at times, and it hasn't at times. So I think they're still in that stage where they're trying to find out to say, hey, can we make a move now, become trade deadline, and get something? or are we going to stick with this core? And obviously Yoshida comes in. You talk about Duvall and Turner, some more bats too. Are we happy and content with that? So that's kind of interesting. I still think they need pitching because in my eyes, you can always need pitching when it comes to baseball. So if there's something that's great out there, whether it's a starter, whether it's a middle, or whether it's a bullpen guy, I always say pitching is very important. So if that happens, please go out and jump on it and get that done. Now, since the All-Star break, they come out, they play Chicago, they win 3 out of 4. Then they play Oakland, worst team in baseball, and only win 1 out of 3. Now, that can't happen. As the guy in Chicago says, you need to win series, not games, not every game, but you need to win series. So they win in Chicago, and where he went to the game and watched with his sons, Paul.
Yeah, I saw that. He picked a good game. He picked a great game.
He was at Wrigley and he watched. And so they won 3 out of 4. Now they come to Oakland, and unfortunately, they don't do the job. They needed to get that done, and they went 1 out of 3. So what's coming up? Home against the Mets, 3 games. They're in 4th place in the East. Then they go home against Atlanta for 2 games, who's in 1st place. So them 5 games there, try to get 3. You come back with at San Francisco, 3rd in the West, and then at Seattle, 4th in the West. So in that 7-game series, you need to get 4. So you're trying to find a way to win series, Paul, because that always puts you ahead, puts you up, and keeps you climbing, especially in the wild card. So hopefully with what they have here, and then they'll learn from that. And Bloom says, well, hey, this ain't working. I got to get this. Or I have the pitching. I got to get this. So we'll see what that takes. And I'm going to tell you this one, Paul, because it may not happen. It may last one day, but who's in 1st place in the American League East?
The Baltimore Orioles.
That is correct. So I'm only going to say it today because it could not happen tomorrow. But I'll take what I can get.
Oh, you're talking about Mark from Chicago going to Wrigley Field, and I saw a picture on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that's great. And I know he's a Red Sox fan, so he was rooting for the Red Sox. I believe he was rooting for the Red Sox. And I remember the game that he was at. That was a great game for the Red Sox. They were banging the ball around. They were getting pitching. They were hitting the ball. I mean, what a great day it was at Wrigley Field. Beautiful sunny day. So I'm like, lucky him. And then the next day, the Red Sox stunk the place out. So, I just wanted to tell you, I was thinking about going to a Red Sox game. So I just want to know, like, should I stay away from Fenway? Like, just stay the heck away from there because Mark Sylvia goes, he's like a good luck charm. I haven't seen my home team win. Every time I go, it's a disaster. You know what I'm saying? I got to break the streak sometime.
Well, listen, if it's anything in the experience like you do with the Celtics and Bruins, you might as well just stay right home, right next to your wife and watch the game on TV there.
I got my flat screen. I got my flat screen TV over here. I haven't got as many TVs as Chris has.
Yeah.
Chris, it looks like the NBC studios in his house there, you know.
Yep.
So that's so anyway, 774-762-6234. You see it on the screen right there for Santos on Sports. Again, thanks to Scotty's Pub, Cities Wide Glass, Lakeville Athletic Club, and attorney John Seed for sponsoring Santos on Sports. You know, the Red Sox too, right? You know, they had a team a few years ago that got into the wild card, won that great game against the Yankees. Everything was going great. They ended up going to Game 6 of the American League Championship Series. I actually went to that game against Houston when they got blown out. After they won that game in the bottom of the 9th, they hit the ball over the wall. I'm like, oh, that's great, man. I wish I was that game. I wasn't at the game where there's a walk-off. Right, so I'm like, all right, I'll go to I'll get tickets for next week, and then I went to tickets for next week, and you know what happened? They got blown out of the arena. But anyway, that's the way it goes.
You know how that works. That's baseball. So just you got to watch it all the way to the end to see what happens.
But you sneak in, and anything can happen. And let's see what Ryan from Rochester has to say. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Yeah.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. What's happening?
Still a little bummed about even though I was expecting it, a little bit bummed out about the fall. I wouldn't say the fallout, but the expected not signing of DeAndre Hopkins, the cheaping out, despite the fact they only went for like what was it, like $13 million a year or something like that. It's just the same old thing with the Pats. Really, I'd say they are cheaping out a little too much to win, especially with the way that the division is gone right now. And
I've said multiple times, like I'm not looking for like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. All I want is one playmaker. And then of course I think I texted you guys about this. So somehow the Pats are still the betting favorites to land Dalvin Cook. Then you see yesterday they're working out guys like Leonard Fournette and what's the guy's name who used to be for the Rams, Darrell Henderson. So it's just disregard for that side of the ball once again.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were listening earlier, Ryan. Barry was on from Fall River, and he was talking about had some good things about Hopkins with the age up there at 31, kind of a lot of wear and tear, and I was trying to be a little bit more positive, saying veteran leadership in the locker room, someone you can rely on, a taller receiver that can go up and get a ball, somebody you need maybe on third down to get a first down for you. Something that can get through double coverage. Spread the field, go down, go vertical, different things like that. So, I was kind of rooting for you in that sense that I thought the Patriots would make that. Some other people saying it's not worth it. But I just think, having opportunities out there to get some kind of leadership and a good veteran, I think it's worth to go get if the price is right. And I thought it was, and they just decided not to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. He may be on the decline. I'm not willing to say that just yet because he was just coming off an injury and was with a trash Cardinals team. But veteran leadership, and I think you said it too. A guy who has great hands, can go up and get contested balls. I think personally, even though he's not like the best route runner in the league, I think he is a better route runner than people give him credit for. And I've seen him get really open just on route running at some points. And he's certainly better than anybody that we got in the room. And I'd say that would take a wide receiver room that we got right now that's really average at best to slightly above average to borderline great, depending on how much he has left in the tank. But they just didn't want to match Tennessee's offer, and it's pissing me off a little bit that they're still acting with no urgency. And to be honest, even though I mostly fault Bill for this, I also got to fault Robert Kraft for not stepping in and saying, "Hey, let's go get Mac his guy. I don't care how much he costs."
Well, let's. I agree with you, Ryan. But let's switch sports right now. And if you're Bloom and the Red Sox, do you do something come trade deadline time? And if you say yes, what would you like to see different in the lineup, in the pitching? What do you see that the Red Sox could say, well, I think they could need help here. They could need help here, or definitely go do this. What do you think?
So for one thing, I would say at least get one more starting arm. Like it doesn't need to be like, say like a top-notch guy like Max Scherzer a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But get one more starting arm in there because I still can't fully rely on Chris Sale, if you ask me, because he gets hurt every single year. And I don't want it shoved in my face like, hey, we're getting Chris Sale back off of IL. There's our trade acquisition right there, like we got a couple of years ago. I'm not buying that. I would still like to see at least an average shortstop in there because the play there has been bad for so long. And maybe another first baseman in there because Cassis has been struggling a little bit there this year defensively, which was a little disappointing to me because I thought there was finally going to be some stability there. And putting Justin Turner in there was not the best of ideas, it seems. So, and shortstop's been a major hole all year, and mainly just because even when Trevor Story comes back, I wouldn't necessarily rely on him either.
Hey, Ryan, what do you think of this Hein Bloom approach? He's trying to do in Boston what they did in Tampa Bay, but it seems to me that you have an advantage in Boston because you can do some of the things that he did at Tampa Bay, build a team from below, build a farm system, develop players and stuff like that. But then you have the added trump card of being able to say, okay, we can complement that with a couple of good signings, some good free agents that come in here and combine that with the younger players. So it seems to me that they should do that. I don't know if he will, but shouldn't he do that?
I think he should. Tampa is a smaller market, so you're more restricted. So you kind of have to go build from the bottom up. And here's my thing too. I'd have been fine if of that method if it was actually working. Like clearly Chaim Bloom wasn't the right hire from that particular system because you see what Tampa's doing. Like aren't they up there in the American League. Like I know they're first place in the division, but they're pretty high up in the rankings in the American League in that regard. So they're doing it correctly. Chaim Bloom, on the other hand, seems to have learned nothing from being there for these years because all he's doing is hoarding all of the wrong prospects and just kind of just hoarding prospects just for the sake of doing it and not taking the big splash that you can make because you're in the Boston market. It's just frustrating.
Well, I think that means August is going to be very interesting come that trade deadline to see if these managers and these GMs work together and, Cora says, hey, we need to go do this and we need to do that. Mm-hmm. And see if they listen and say, oh, yeah, okay, let's go do it. Because obviously when you hear a name like Ohtani, now I'm not saying that the Sox are going to go get Ohtani or have to. But every time I hear a name, and this is one of the biggest names in a long time, the two teams that just come to mind every single time, and it's so sickening, is the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. If I have to continue to hear those two teams every time a top ace or a top hitter comes up, I just don't understand how that can happen. And these other teams let it happen, and they continue to get the big player. Just makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, if Chaim Bloom was willing to make an Ohtani type splash, then all the power to him. That might change my mind. That would kind of make me say, hey, maybe he's been hoarding these prospects all of these years for the capability of making the biggest move possible. But I just don't see him doing that.
What about the argument that Chaim Bloom would make, and that is, kind of similar to what happened with the Celtics when, Brown and Tatum were really young. They were 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's like, wait, they kept saying, trade them, do this, that. And no, wait, let them develop. They're going to, and they did make it to the finals. So is he looking at it like, hey, he's got this young core of players, got some of these pitchers here like Bayo, Chris mentioned Verdugo, Duran, the young players like that. Are we just being impatient? In other words, a year from now, 2 years from now, is this core going to hit their stride? Is it just a wait and we don't?
Well, I would agree with that if it wasn't for the fact that they were on the cusp of making a World Series just a couple of years ago. Like if we were a team like, say, the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Cincinnati Reds that have just been at the bottom for so damn long, and then all of a sudden we're kind of getting up there. Like then I'd probably be more willing to say, okay, let's just be patient. Let's see how things go. But this is a team that won the World Series years ago in 2018. I want to say they made the playoffs. Did they make the playoffs at least once since then? I believe so. But they were on the cusp of getting to the World Series a couple of years ago. So now I think we're at a point where it's like, okay, we need to be building towards that getting back to the World Series.
And Paul, and remember what you're talking about, Paul. You're not getting rid of Duran, Verdugo, and Devers. You're looking to help them and add on. So as he says, you have them hoarding, some drafts down below in AAA and AA, and then I have so many of them. Now I give up maybe one good player and a couple of those with some money or whatever it is to try to bring in the big name. So it's not like you're going to get rid of those players to get the big player. You're just looking to help and add on to those big names that you already have.
Right. And I know, Ryan, you look at the defense, you mentioned, the different players on the team, and Chris talked about we need more pitching and all that, which is always the case. Everybody could always use more pitching. But up until now, the Red Sox defense, it's a little bit better lately. But I watched some games. I thought I was down with my Little League team with throwing the ball all around. And I want to yell out, stop throwing the ball around, It was pretty bad. It's gotten better. But what about tightening up the defense? Maybe, what should they do there, do you think?
Kind of like what I was saying before. Probably just find some legitimate depth at shortstop because obviously the Kike Hernandez experiment was god awful. Yeah. I don't even know some of the names that they threw in there, and
second base too.
Second base was I don't even get it. Was Arroyo hurt?
Hey, I don't know. Every time I put the game on, I'm like, who's playing second base today? It's like they were putting anybody in.
They even tried Turner in that position in second. But the infield, the infield is led.
Maximize the lineup by putting him at second base. That did not go well at all. He's too old and slow.
Yeah. And the infield is led by, and to me, the infield is led by your shortstop. He's your main personnel. In the outfield, obviously, it's the center fielder to me. So those two guys become very, very, very important to what we can work around it. That's why Story, when he was not there and going in, he wasn't going to be there. That's where I kind of scratch my head and say about, getting rid of Bogarts. Because if you had something that was there ready and say, okay, this season he's going to be here, then I would have been a little bit more easier. But he's not even there, and he hasn't been there from the beginning of the season. So that's tough to swallow. So, they're going to have to bite the bullet right now unless there's some young kid out there in AAA and AA that can really make an impact. Because if not, they're stuck right now, and they're going to have to do some juggling acts to try to shore up their defense.
Hey, Ryan, thank you very much for your usual excellent call, and we hope to hear from you again. And that first week of August, it's a week from Monday is the trade deadline. Well, August 1st is a week from Monday. And then we'll have our team all set, and we'll see whether or not we can make a run.
Hopefully a move or two will happen in that time. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan from Rochester. 774-762-6234 if you want to get in before the bewitching hour of 5 o'clock here on Santos on Sports. Thank you very much for the callers and the people that have been commenting today. We really, really enjoy that. We love the interaction. 2 really good calls today on Santos on Sports. And, we were talking a little bit about the Red Sox here and these young players and maybe trying to go out and compliment with a really good player or two at the trade deadline. And I got to tell you, that may happen, but I have a feeling that, you talk about Ohtani, well, he's like off the chart, whatever. But, you get a feeling that Chaim Bloom's going to go for like some B-, C+ kind of a guy, somebody that doesn't cost that much. That's like a veteran presence and all that kind of thing. Not really like going swinging for the fences. You know what I mean? I think that's what's frustrating because we know that the Red Sox have the money.
Oh, no, absolutely they do. And they got to find a way to use it. And I think they're just waiting for the right move, to make and say, we're going to get it done. Interesting one too, Paul, the other day. How about Pivetta? Comes in out of the bullpen, pitches 6 innings, throws 13 strikeouts. That set a record since like 1892 that a reliever threw 13 strikeouts, during that time. So does that mean now Pivetta goes back to the starting rotation and somebody else goes, back to the bullpen? That'll be interesting to see if they make that move. Or it's like, well, wait a minute. We got Pivetta. Look what he's doing out of the pen. Let's keep him right here just in case we really need him and someone gets banged up early. We can put him right in there and it look like we just have another starter there. So a move that Cora will have to make. But pitching, very important. Always say it. And as Ryan said, how can you trust Sale? You just can't trust him. He just doesn't, show enough with his wear and tear body to say, yeah, we can't wait for him to come back to August and he's going to help us out all the way to the playoffs. So pitching to me is where they need to go.
With Sale, you're almost better off using him in the bullpen in some fashion, come in and, close things down in the 8th inning or something like that, because you try to get 6 innings out of him. That's where you're going to run into trouble. I can see him on the mound in the 6th inning, throws the ball and all of a sudden, and then that's the end of him for the season. You know what I mean? Like, I think you got to be really careful with him.
Yeah. And we've seen people in the past when it comes to playoffs, you can start games, you can close games, you can be middle relief. It doesn't matter because there's no tomorrow sometimes, and they'll throw you in. But that's not a bad idea, Paul. And you maybe want to save the guy and put him in for an inning. I'll put him in for 2 and say that's it and shut him down and then come back another game for another inning or 2. So that is a possibility that he could go to the bullpen, where teams always like to have a southpaw reliever and a left-hander. So it'll be interesting. That's not a bad idea.
Well, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned before. Let me just get the number out there again, 774-762-6234. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you if you're sitting out there thinking, maybe I'll call, maybe I don't. Give us a call. Your opinion is just as good, if not better than ours. We just love to hear from you. Everybody has a different point of view. But Chris had talked about Ohtani, right? And you talked about how these big free agents always end up in either New York or Los Angeles. Well, of course, New York and Los Angeles, 2 biggest cities in the United States, and Chicago is right up there as well. Yep. And, of course, those are the big market teams. But the Boston market is right up there as well. Yep. And John Henry's got a ton of money. They've made a ton of money. The Red Sox could spend the money. And we're talking about the Patriots being cheap. Well, the Red Sox are being cheap too. And I got to tell you, right, I know Ohtani's going to command $500 million or something like that, right? But think about it this way. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the Red Sox signed him for 10 years and he was there? The park could probably be sold out for the next 10 years. I mean, you're seeing somebody like Babe Ruth that pitches. He's one of the best pitchers in the league and one of the best hitters in the league at the same time. I mean, just think about that for a moment. I don't think that's talked about enough because he's over there in Anaheim. You put him in pinstripes, or you put him in a Red Sox uniform or a Dodger uniform, or say the Giants or the Cubs or something like that. Wow, that'd be big for baseball. But for us in Boston, hey, I got to tell you, I think it's worth a try to go after him. Not necessarily right now, but maybe at the end of the season, if he ends up staying with Anaheim for the rest of the year. I don't know if he's going to be a rental or not, but why not roll out the money for him? Because I think it's going to pay for itself in the long run. The Red Sox ratings will double. Like I said, the park will be sold out. I mean, I think you can make that money back by paying a guy like that.
Well, it's a guy you're going to see every day. Number one, he's going to be a 5'2" guy on offense. He's going to be a 5'2" guy for pitching. And as you said, you don't see that ever in Major League Baseball. And so you want to spend that money. That's the guy you want to spend it on, because look what he's offering, not only to you, but the community in Boston, to say, hey, we could sell out for 10 years just on this guy alone. And maybe we should make that attempt because of what he can do on the mound, with innings, Ks, wins and losses, Ks to strikeouts. And then you come back with obviously home runs, batting average, RBIs, everything that he offers as a player. And so that's where, to me, it's almost like saying, okay, let's say Paul, they paid $400 for him. Well, $200 is for pitching and $200 is for hitting.
Yeah,
it's
right.
$200 for one. It's you're getting both things. That's what people have to understand. This guy is both. He's not just one way guy. So that's why I would love for Baltimore to go get him myself.
I got to tell you, I can't even begin to fathom what it would be like to have this guy wearing that Red Sox uniform, Red Sox, the B up there. Oh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, getting in there, standing in that batter's box up on the mound. I mean, it would be like, I want to say circus because that's the meaning. I mean, it would just be, the atmosphere would be like through the roof. Every single game would be like a World Series game. This guy, I mean, they used to talk about Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a great pitcher, a Cy Young guy before he became a hitter. It's like, yeah, that was 100 years ago. You know what I mean? The game's changed a lot. Like 5 years ago or whatever, before Ohtani came along, right? We could never fathom somebody being able to be a pitcher and a hitter at the same time. Not even like an average pitcher. Let's say he was just like an average pitcher, like a guy with a 4 ERA, like a Wakefield or something like that. Plays a little bit, bats 250 or something. No, he's like one of the best pitchers in the league and one of the best hitters in the league at the same time. It's like unfathomable. So
the Angels were over in they were home playing the Yankees, and they talked to Aaron Judge last night. And Judge turned to the camera and said, "You're looking at something that you will never see, probably out of anybody in a long time. This is something special. Whether he breaks my record or not, which he said records are made to be broken, but you're seeing something special where it's a guy that you see every single day in the lineup, no matter what, from DH to a position to on the hill. And, guys nowadays always take rest. They take days off, different things. Knock on wood, the guy has not been hurt. He hasn't been injured, and he's more suspect to become that in what he does on the mound and up at bat. So give him a lot of credit right now where credit is due, because he's putting on a show.
Yeah, for Aaron Judge to say that. I mean, Aaron Judge, obviously big season last year with all the home runs. I mean, just a power hitter. The Yankees ended up, rolling out the wallet for him, and he wanted to stay there. And I like the fact that he stayed there. You know what I mean? I always like the idea that, Big Papi is our guy. And I know Big Papi started in Minnesota, but Big Papi was our guy. Derek Jeter was a Yankee. Mariano Rivera was a Yankee. You go back to the College Tremsky days, the whole career in Boston. I like that. You guys moving around, Ellsbury's here, then he's there, then he's one of us, then he's one of them. I'm old school like that. So I like that idea. Obviously, Ohtani's a different situation because he's going to end up in one of the big market teams for sure. But can you imagine? I mean, You go to a Red Sox, even now the Red Sox Yankee games are still special. I mean, I look at the tickets; the ticket prices are higher, even though both teams are like borderline playoff teams. Right now, the Yankees and the Red Sox, neither one of them would be in the playoffs. But when they play each other, it's something special. Can you imagine? You go to a game, you're going to have to spend like $500 to get a box seat because you're going to look out there and it's going to be Aaron Judge in one dugout, one of the great power hitters of all time, and the other dugout is Ohtani, one of the great all-around players of all time, and they're in the Red Sox and Yankee uniforms. I mean, talk about a rebirth of the Red Sox, because there's a lot of talk now about how the Red Sox have really drifted down to the number 4 team attention-wise. You know, the Celtics, the Bruins had a lot of buzz. Of course, the Patriots are the Patriots. Red Sox, they used to be like number 1 all the time, and they've drifted down to number 4. The ratings are low. Nobody's paying attention to them. Put Ohtani in that uniform and you put him in there, oh my God, it would be like an explosion of attention.
If he goes to New York, Paul, he is going to shatter records. With that short porch right field bandbox, he'll bunt the thing out there and it will still go over the fence. And him being a left-hander, he will tear the house that Ruth built up, and he will put on a clinic as long as he stays healthy through his career if he goes to that team. No doubt in my mind.
So if you're Ohtani, and I don't know what he's thinking, where he wants to go, you know, he could go anywhere really that he wants to go. I imagine he's going to end up on one of these big market teams. You talk about Yankee Stadium, right? I know somebody else said, well, you know, the way he can go the other way with the ball, you know, he could really play ping pong off the Green Monster and then at the same time drive the ball to right field for home runs there too at Fenway. But like you mentioned Yankee Stadium, if you're him, let's say you're Ohtani, are you looking at the stadium? Are you looking at the stadium saying, well, this stadium, you know, kind of fits me. I'll be able to hit a lot of home runs at Yankee Stadium. So like all things being equal, is he going to go, well, I'm going to go over here because I think the stadium fits me?
No, maybe not. I'm sure it's not that. I mean, I'm looking
at
it.
No, like all things being equal.
It's possible that he could kind of say, well, you know, I've had success in that stadium over my years playing with the Angels. And then you got to look at, you know, what's around you, the community, the attraction of New York, the attraction of Boston. And we know how those cities are, you know, the Dodgers, you know, where he is with the Angels, you know, it's not a hot commodity, and the Angels, nothing against them. It hasn't been for a while for them. So you have to put all that into perspective. And then, of course, the money and everything else. And then the team, too, comes back and says, well, if I'm making that trade, what are we getting for him? What comes back to us? What do we get in return? What are the Yankees offering? They're going to offer their shortstop Volpe. You know, that was a name that came out with all these other guys and money. Or the Red Sox offer this out of their bullpen, out of their, you know, guys out in AAA, or some good pitches that they have there. So that all comes into a big factor. But if you're Ohtani, I think you look money first. I think you look team second. And third is the word win. These guys want to win. I want the World Series. I want the championship. Who can give me that? That's the next one.
How do you think that Ohtani swing fits at Camden Yards? You know, that would go pretty good over there, don't you think?
They're in first place, Paul, in the American League East. If he wants to come over, let's take him, and we'll just lead our way into, hopefully, the World Series. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, but Baltimore doesn't have the money, right? They don't have the deep pockets that like Boston, New York.
Well, no, but they do have a lot of good. They have a lot of good minor league feeding system, and they have a lot of good prospects there. And they would have to obviously host something really worthwhile to the Angels for him to come there. So, yeah, that would be kind of tough. But you know, I'm always thinking. You never know.
All right, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors again. Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Citywide glass with 3 locations to serve you at 425 State Road in Dartmouth, additional locations in Fall River and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville. You can play tennis, pickleball, and more. And John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can check out his website at johnseedlaw.com. I'd like to thank Barry from Fall River. I think that was a new caller. Excellent call, too. Excellent call. He had his ducks all lined up, and he had his opinion ready to go. He was all fired up. And, of course, Ryan from Rochester, Philip McDonald chiming in on the comment line. So thank you very much for that. And, Chris, hey, it's always nice to chat here with you. And I got to tell you, this weather, I'm loving this 85 degrees and sunny stuff that we're getting out there. A little hot, but we'll take it.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't rain, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves because we had a lot of it. But hopefully it's subsiding and we get back to the warm weather, get back out there and do the things that we need to do. Golf course, tennis course, all that kind of stuff.
I understand that Mark from Chicago might be visiting Massachusetts pretty soon.
And that's a rumor. He should be coming down. So maybe in August, Paul, we can have him come to the Paul Santos live show.
Yeah, he
That
told
might
me. He told me he may make an appearance down there. That would be fantastic.
We'll
I'm
that up.
not going to ask him if he guarantees it because that might ruin it. So I'll just have to hope. All right. For Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Thanks a lot again. We had a lot of fun today for Santos on Sports. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.